spoken about what their policy and expenditure priorities are, because they find it easier to run and campaign on an issue than to solve the problem. Difficult days still lie ahead. There are still difficult days lying ahead, because we must still clean up the government, we must eliminate waste, we must hold the corrupt accountable, some of whom are in parliament. It's going to be difficult days ahead, but I think it's become clear who's got the maturity to be in the room when tough decisions have to be taken and who's not. Thank you.
Thank you very much. From Rise Mzansi, may I call on Mr. Musemaimane from BOSA.
Bagaitsu dumelang. And I want to say, now that the decision to remove VAT has been taken, it would be amiss of me not to wish South Africans a happy Freedom Day. Let me thank the parties that are represented here. Speak to South Africans. The day of the budget vote, the question that was put before the House was not whether you want VAT or you don't want VAT. Whilst VAT is an important component of the budget, the question that was put before South Africans is, do you want a fiscal framework that, whilst it may include VAT and it is going to be adjusted, you want a fiscal framework that will focus on education, that will focus on safety, that will ensure that we have a growing economy. We faced a tough decision as Build One South Africa. We had to stand up before the people of South Africa and say, to reject one component and ignore what is a basket of services that are put in the budget to shield poor South Africans. Shielding poor South Africans isn't just a question of zero rating items. Shielding poor South Africans is about making sure that classrooms in quintile 1, 2, and 3 have teachers in them, so that you don't have full classrooms of over 70, but you provide in the budget so that there are more teachers. It's about making sure that hospitals have got nurses and doctors. It's about making sure that those who travel from distant communities to places of work have got a public transport system that can work for them. These are the questions that, if you are genuine about building a South Africa we want, and you want to be responsible, you have to stand up and say, how do we work towards these? And how do we achieve those? I promised on the day when we voted that as Build One South Africa, we'll do everything we can to make sure that the 0.5% does not go ahead. And I want to affirm that that began an extensive process. It began a process at which, through the African National Congress, we're able to engage and share some of these thoughts and these questions. We're able to speak to National Treasury and put proposals about how we can raise revenue and make sure that ultimately, when we go to the second part of the budget, which is part of the Appropriations Committee, a committee I chair, that when we look at the Division of Revenue Bill and the Appropriations Bill, we would be able to amend using the Money Bills and Related Matters Act to alleviate wasteful expenditure, do the appropriate reviews, and ensure that we never get around to the increase of 0.5%. Fellow South Africans, I think it's important to acknowledge the extensive amount of work that has taken in the last number of weeks, and in the place where it can only take place, which is to stay in the room of Parliament. And I want to say, I want to be grateful and thankful to the parties that are here for the leadership exercise, the patience, and the willingness to hear and affirm the work that Treasury now needs to do. But what is clear and common cause is that today, whilst be a victory and a victory for the people of South Africa, is only but a start. The work must continue. The Minister of Finance correctly states that multiple bills now have to be tabled before Parliament. And as the statement read out earlier on today affirms, that Parliament now needs to begin the work not only of engaging GTAC as far as spending reviews are concerned, but we have to find reforms that achieve growth. The reason you end up needing VAT is inherently because we've grown at 1% for the last 10 years. So now the job is, let us ensure that we have a resilient economy that can grow so that our social spend can be catered for in the budget going forward. And I, along with the finance cluster, which is the Portfolio Committee on Finance, the Portfolio Committee on Public Accounts, and our Portfolio Committee on Appropriations, commit ourselves afresh to putting in all the hard work that is necessary to ensure that by the legislated time frame, a budget is put before South Africans, passed legally, and can ensure that it achieves the very things that we seek to achieve. May I affirm that ultimately it will require more work on the part of Treasury, and we have to engage it. And lastly, as Parliament then meets to consider this, we have to work with the speed and the urgency cognizant of the fact that we hear the people of South Africa. May I address the final question, which is to the people of this country? Many people have been, as would, placing on social media various things about how their respective companies have sent them letters telling them that VAT is going up. And that's a legitimate process. But I want to say to the people of this country, we're living in a new reality and a new terrain. This is a space that, as coalition and as the future of this country, we're going to have to learn through. I want to ask for your patience. As difficult as that is, I need to ask you for that. Because at the end of the day, we are going to have to work together as we learn the new terrain, but achieve what we collectively want with leaders who are willing to stay in the room, engage, listen to you through public consultation processes, and be able to ultimately, you're not going to get everything that we want. But we've got to work together to reform so that we can grow and ensure that South Africans are included. So I do beg your patience, and I do want to reaffirm, I'm sure I'm speaking for everyone that is here, that it was never born out of malice to try and confuse as others have gone to different parts. It is born out of genuinely trying to find the best solutions for the people of this country. And when we entered these negotiations, we did so with the ambition of trust and the bona fides of each of the political parties. If you can't get those two conditions on the table, then you will negotiate backhanded, you'll end up doing things that do not serve the people. But if you sit down and are earnest and say, let us go through the process in this new reality where multiple parties have to find themselves in the room, I believe we've learned some important lessons now. We will learn more lessons in the medium-term budget policy statement, and we will ensure that come February next year, the delays and all of those issues will be taken out as we look at even how the budget-making process takes place to ensure that we achieve the ambitions of the people. For us as BOSA, we had to put up our hands and say, let's fight for education, let's fight for safety, let's fight for an economy that grows, and that's contained in our budget. And let's do the work that has been tasked to us in the Appropriations Committee to ensure that all the spending reviews, all the work that we need to do about an efficient government is done. And that remains still our commitment, and we want to invite you along with all the political parties to say, as we focus on the future, this is a new terrain, but I think together we'll end up on the other side better, as we are today, as the people of this country, to say, fine, now we have a budget that will go ahead. It doesn't include VAT, but here are the adjustments we are going to make. And in the next year, it will continue to get better as we learn to walk this new road. So in conclusion, I wish you all a pleasant, happy Freedom Day. And goes.
Thank you very much to Muse Maimane. I'd like to invite the Jama-ah party to Mr. Hendricks to address the media.
Good morning, assalamu alaikum. The work that has been taking place during the past 3 weeks is the work those who died in the trenches expected political parties will engage in on the eve of Freedom Day. The 2025 fiscal framework of the 7th Parliament captured the imagination of Jama-ah as it moved away from austerity measures and started to focus on frontline services like more doctors, more dams, more bridges, and a cherry on the top, an above inflation increase for social grant recipients, including older persons and child support grants and grants for people with disabilities. Jama-ah considered these small changes revolutionary while we have slow economic growth. Parliament has timelines, and delay passing the framework would have caused for me as Deputy Minister of Social Development anxiety amongst 45% of the country dependent on social grants. So Jama-ah wanted to help remove that anxiety. We supported the fiscal framework because it had an escape route of 30 days, which Parliament granted to address 2 concerns Jama-ah had with this framework. The one was the VAT increase, and the second concern we had was the expenditure adjustment if this revenue stream is lost. Jama-ah assured the ANC, in spite of the 2 concerns, that Jama-ah will not delay passing the rates and monetary bill and the budget. For Jama-ah, parliament processes are the heart of our democracy, not our courts. Before the expiry of 30 days granted by Parliament, some parties went to court to cause instability. Some say the first steps for regime change and a return to apartheid. So some of my colleagues refer to the Democratic Alliance as extortionists, and others refer to them as kidnappers. I don't know what I must call a political party that undermines Parliament. Maybe the Fourth Estate can come up with a suitable headliner. Imagine the anxiety for 28 million social grant recipients, including children depending on social child support, while the Democratic Alliance is involved in the games that they play, trying to be extortionists and kidnappers, and the headliner we hope the media will supply us with. So we hope that DA will never govern. I just want to also say that the grants I referred to supported 80% of the class of 2024 to pass matric with the food security that it provided. Jama-ah thanks the ANC for the extensive consultations, and we reminded the ANC of the position of Chief Albert Luthuli, their former famous president, who said, "Let my people go," and under the present circumstances, that meant no VAT increase. Jama-ah's concern now is the possibility of expenditure adjustments. But the ANC has facilitated direct engagement with National Treasury. To conclude, Al Jama-ah would like to call on the Minister of Finance, please, no unilateral expenditure adjustments. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much from Al Jama. I think I am left with two organizations. I ask members of the media to bear with us. We are quite a large group. I'd like to invite the United Democratic Movement.
Thank you very much, Chairperson of the session. Bendisho Buslibel. Buslibel basiphethe amajoni pha sawuse sikudubule. On behalf of the Deputy Minister of Defense and the President of the UDM, General Holomisa, the UDM welcomes the National Treasury's decision to scrap the VAT increase. And we are satisfied that the GNU has taken this bold step after careful and long collaboration to ensure that we put the poor masses of South Africa first. And this is a call that we are glad the Minister of Finance has heeded. I wish to state that contrary to the populist statements that are out there, the UDM did not support the proposed 0.5% VAT hike. Instead, the UDM supported the 2025-2026 budget fiscal framework, which then meant that it is on condition that the Minister of Finance explores the alternative revenue proposals that are at bay and were submitted by various political parties. In line with this, we must actually mention that we submitted to the Standing Committee of Finance specifically on paragraph 6.29 that we are asking for the review of all of these measures. We must state to South Africans that a state without a budget, unfortunately, is a doomed state. My colleagues that are standing here have already mentioned this at length, but it should be emphasized that without a budget or a fiscal framework, the government definitely means that it will be shutting down. There will be no department that can legally spend on any of the procurement plans they have in place. Furthermore, it means that the salaries of the public servants, meaning the teachers, the nurses, the soldiers, the police, are not going to be paid, meaning that government would actually come down to a halt. Constitutionally, it means that we would be in crisis. The Constitution supported by the PFMA mentions and states that no funds may be withdrawn from the National Revenue Fund without the consultation of the legislation and without the approved budget. Unfortunately, it means that all government operations would become unlawful, an issue that the UDM does not support completely. It would mean that there is a collapse of service delivery, even extending to grants, SASSA grants, as well as NSFAS. It would mean that emergency response units, such as your SAPS, healthcare, all come to a halt. And this would ultimately lead to a political fallout, where it means that there is a vote of no confidence in the government of the GNU, effectively invoking Section 216 of the Constitution. I must state that no political party or single political party can claim victory over this specific milestone. It is a win for the people of South Africa who deployed us to govern in the government of national unity and advance their interests. I must also state the government of national unity is not a convenience, but a contract with the people of South Africa, who declared through a vote that they do not wish to be governed by a one-party government. As such, this is a warning to all of those Beyoncés of the GNU that we will not tolerate le Beyonce bayenzayo. We will not tolerate these Nicodemus tendencies that they are doing, your kwekwa at night, behamba bekhupha statements. If you want to be in the GNU, govern. But if you do not want to be in the GNU, the opposition benches are very much open for all of those who do not wish to be in the government of national unity. Because this opposition is not necessarily the first instance. They started with the Bela Bill. They followed with the Land Expropriation Without Compensation Act, knowing very well that the parameters are given for certain exclusions. And they went further on to now stand and oppose the fiscal framework, knowing very well that this specific VAT hike was one of the measures that was one of the line items that were going to be deliberated on very much. So we will not allow le Beyonce bayenzayo. If bafuna ukuchwechwa ebusuku mabahambe baye kwi-opposition benches instead of babakhupha statements at night. We are standing here as the UDM affirming to South Africans that sinimele eburhulumenteni, and we will forever advance your interests and specifically the interests of the poor. That is why we voted against the budget, the VAT hike. And we voted specifically to put a framework into place, because a government without a framework or a fiscal framework is a doomed state. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, my brother. Without ado, and last but not least, I'd like to call the National Colored Congress to come to the fore and address members of the media.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. The NCC is not part of the GNU, but when called in the interest of the poor in the country, the NCC decided to join. And we had our discussion, and we made our input. And I must tell you, in all honesty, our input was minimal, because on entering the room, we could sense that there was a commitment here to do away with that. There was no real fight. I want to applaud every one of the 11 parties here today, and I want to say thank you on behalf of the poor people of this country. But this is no victory. It's just a step in the right direction. We'll start winning when we start reducing that. That's the day we pop champagne, SG. I want to ask the media to please remember, people like Ashley Kriel and Solomon Mshlango died so that you could be our watchdogs. When I say our, I mean all of us. When I switched my television on this morning, I was nauseated, because a party that is part of the GNU was claiming a VAT victory despite the fact that there was no court ruling. As if our 3 weeks of hard talks and disagreements meant nothing. Our people died so that white people would never again talk down to us or belittle us. Today, the media allowed them to. As if us, people of color, standing right here in front of you, our IQ, our intellect, our ability was challenged on TV. The Democratic Alliance played no part in this. This was our work. This was us coming together saying, let us put our differences aside and understand why we are here. The media needs to tell John Steenhuisen that I doubt that he's smart enough to be a strategist, and Alan Zille is too old to be a diva. Because I remember a very famous DA member once saying, what is bad for the country is good for the DA. These people create crisis because they expect all people of color to be stupid. They must be honest and say, we would have voted for the VAT if you allowed us to own the ports, the roads, and the rails. If you allowed us to turn the Western Cape into a bigger version of Aranya, we would have no problem with a 0.5% VAT increase. If you had allowed us to keep your children caught up in gutter education, we would have voted for the VAT increase. If we had allowed us to hold on to your stolen land, we would have voted for the VAT increase. I wish Helen Zille's surgeon would inject some truth into that Botox, because nothing but lies comes out of that mouth. This right here was an issue of this country's very security. Our lives were at stake. But you see, white supremacy thinks nothing of playing with the lives of the poor. We stand here with major differences. I have very little in common with Rise Mzansi. I have very little in common with BOSA. But today, They are our comrades. We can't be full-time opposition. There are days when you have to work together. The Democratic Alliance chooses to be an opposition within the government, however that might make sense. The NCC is proud to have done a service to South Africa today. And we look forward to doing many more. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Lots of terminology in the room. Now turn to members of the media. I know that you won't be as long as politicians in your questions, so that the responses are also crisp and then can give more people enough opportunity. I'll start there with SABC. So hand up, Pravuyo. SABC and then newsroom, and then I will come to the right. Please introduce the media house in front, and let's go that way. Try and raise your voice, we're struggling. We can't hear.
I'm asking about the draft bill that has, the notice has come up, we've seen that it's been presented. I'm asking if it is realistic for South Africans to expect these political parties to meet in Parliament within 3 working days to resolve that issue? Or are you going to rely, as it was with the DA, that you will put applications to come up with a resolution before the president?
Thank you very much. Newsroom Africa.
Helen Ziller this morning said they were invited, but you then told them that the meeting this meeting today was cancelled. And then you, I wanted to check why you decided not to invite all these parties, but not them. And just listening to a couple of the speakers, there seems to be an appetite for the DA to be kicked out of the GND, and that you should consider, I know that instance it was said in jest, but that you should consider reaching out to other parties from the GND and kick the DA out.
Thank you very much. Yes, my sister, if you could just introduce yourself.
My question is to Mr. Zibia, Mr. Mamani, as the chairs of BOSA. If you could just briefly explain a little more on the process or the next steps that are going to happen in Parliament. Does the Finance Minister have to table a new budget altogether because the fiscal framework that was approved includes a VAT hike? Or will the fiscal framework just fall away and you're only debating the division of revenue and appropriations bills? And is all of this possible before the 1st of May? Do you have to call special sittings or how will this work? Thank you.
Can I just reconfirm, you wanted that to be responded to by, oh yes, one of the two. All right, thank you. Looking for the hand, there's a hand there before I come back to the left. Yes.
When did the finance minister inform you that you would step away and still in there? Do they think South Africans would be happy that the bank has been completed and step? But why did you use the techniques was even at 2% and the 0.5%? South Africans would not pay us. Why would us do this?
May I ask members of the media to raise their voices? I don't know what's happening today. Just raise your voices so that we are able to respond accurately to your questions. Yes, I'll go with yourself. Please proceed.
Thank you very much. However, from UFM. Mr. Mbalula, the DA says in an overnight statement that they are happy with this development, of course, and that there's a scheduled high-level meeting, like a meeting with a high-level delegation from the ANC. Can you confirm if that's such a meeting? The DA, he says that they have a scheduled high-level meeting with the ANC, meaning bone of contention has now been resolved.
Thank you very much. I will then come this side. Just want to take all the hands in the first round so that we have enough time to respond to those. Please go ahead.
Afternoon, Tato Kololo from News 24. Response to Mr. Murala. There's been calls for the Minister of Finance to be relieved of his duties after pulling back the VAT hike. So I wanted to find out what the ANC's position on that call is and whether the opposition parties are going to be supporting that call. And then now that we know the VAT increase will not be going forward, where's the money going to be coming from to plug the funding gap that we have of about 30 billion rand, that to be corrected? And I'd also just like a bit of clarity, please, on what, if any, trade-offs were made between the ANC and the opposition parties in order to gain the support for the VAT hike. And lastly, we've obviously seen the Democratic Alliance claim this withdrawal of the VAT hike as a victory. So is this the moment that we could take as resetting of the government of national unity?
Thank you very much. Please go ahead.
Good afternoon, it's Nokulula Ebo from the Daily Maverick. So I understand there's been negotiations over a period of 3 weeks or so. My question is, how was the agreement reached now, all of a sudden? Secondly, with parties like Action SA and BOSA having supported the fiscal framework, will they now be accommodated in the GNU? And to piggyback on the previous question, what will be cut and what would not be cut? Because there's a 30.5 budget hole, I understand.
Thank you very much. Is there another hand this side? None. Okay, then we have a look to my right. None. So I think I can go with this first round. The first question relating to the process and the gazetting and the entire process that's going to unfold in Parliament, I'm going to ask those to be handled by both Mr. Msimanyimane and Mr. Songezo Zibi. And you can just decide which ones you split. I think there's a similar related question around that process, as well as how are we looking to get Treasury to finance the shortfalls and some of the submissions that are on the table, but that cannot be front-loaded. I would ask again that the two parties in particular comment on that. There's a question, several questions to the Secretary General of the ANC. I think SG you were noting. And then I think the last question related to Mr. Maimani. Oh, yeah, I think I've covered that same question. I will ask the colleagues to start because the SG of the ANC has got a number of other questions.
Can I speak first? Oh, all right. No. I see it. This is a negotiated settlement.
I still have to decide whether to.
I have to go.
No. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead, SG.
Okay. No, my apologies. I have to go to Northern Cape, so we're closing the conference of the ANC there. Zamani have spoken nice things there. So we need to go and close the conference, and my apologies to the panel. I did indicate and the media that we have to go to the Northern Cape to address the conference of the ANC. But nonetheless, we had to be here in the morning so that we represent the voice of the African National Congress in our engagement with political parties. That is honorable and that is proper. First, I think I want to start with the clarification, not even clarification, just to dispel some of the things that have been said in general, undertones, and all of that in the media and everywhere else. Somebody somewhere is claiming easy victory. It's not correct. When we first met and we went, and I started in the beginning with 2%, you were told that in the executive, 2% was rejected by ANC ministers together with the DA. Budget was postponed, which then began to tell you that we are in a new terrain. Something that you are not used to happened. I was there in Parliament ready to listen to the Minister of Finance delivering budget. Budget, boom, postponed. It happened. And then we went backwards. The issue was the budget. It was reviewed. Others behind the scenes said 0.5% on conditions the following things do happen. We said these things don't belong to the budget. There's been a long, tedious, arduous process of engagement with political parties. And I want not to speak on behalf of these political parties. Majority of them rejected VAT increase. The ANC included. But the ANC position with a review of 0.5% was informed by the fact that the budget had to cross and there was no alternative to other sources of revenue in terms of the budget. We understand perfectly that budget is regressive and all of that. And then they said, we mitigate the budget. Essential goods are zero rated. It doesn't make sense to our people and everyone else when we use the buzzword poor. You must ask me as Minister of Transport when it comes to e-tolls. Even people who were using buses were opposed to e-tolls. Who didn't pay e-tolls? Buses and taxis, they were not affected. But the black and the middle strata in South Africa in general protested and said no to e-tolls, and they were not paid. So we come to the budget, no to VAT increase. And this was what was coming in terms of engagement. Now, it was not one single political party. From the parties that are here, IFP was opposed, Action SA, I'm talking in the GNU, I'm talking PA in the GNU, good, and everybody were opposed. And then outside, BOSA, Action SA were opposed to VAT. So there can never be a question of easy victory claim that this is apportioned to us. We won it on your behalf as South Africans. And I think that will be easy victory. The fact of the matter is that political parties have stood firm and were very clear, and they chose the path of engagement, which is what has happened and brought us to where we are today. And I can tell you that in the past 3 weeks, we spent sleepless nights talking about the budget, what can be done, what cannot be done, even before. And in those discussions, the DA featured too. In those discussions, the DA featured too. We talked lastly with everyone last week, including EFF and everyone. We engaged. We engaged with the DA. We agreed that we are going to have a follow-up this coming week, which started yesterday to conclude our discussions. But already with these parties, there was clarity about the way forward from our engagement. You've got our statements. Every time we met, we shared statements, not common statement. We will issue as the ANC, the other political party, you will see in those statements consistency. So when you extract the truth, you must extract it from the facts, like the Chinese say. So there's no concoction here. Overnight, udibanisa into ezingadibani, concoction, drink, and what is it? We have won. People started to draft statements because, and posturing, when they realized there is a media briefing. We knew by that time that our answers have been met. The ANC was the last to make a submission to the Minister of Finance because we respect the independence of the Treasury. In all the negotiations we had, Enoch was not part of them. Ask them. He was not party to that. We excused him from those discussions because it was the ANC engaging and not the Treasury engaging with political parties. There was a different path in terms of Treasury that engaged with political parties. So there is no victory that is being claimed here. The fact that political parties chose the path of the courts in itself is their own determination. But I can tell you, before Easter, there was unanimity among us. And even when we went to the ANC, our negotiating position was affirmed that even by the ANC, that VAT must be reversed. Only if there are alternative sources of addressing the shortfall. And the statement of the Treasury is addressing that. Now, others went to court because it is their right to go to court and all of that. And then went to court with government. We were not cited in court and we were not there. But it is within their right to go to court. And in this particular instance, the pronouncement by Treasury came earlier than whatever they were asking from the courts. And that is the reality. That's what has actually happened in this short space of time. And we have never asked the DA to withdraw the case in court because that is their call. And in our meeting, we did talk about the case, but they explained themselves that they are already in court and they are going ahead in terms of their court case and all of that. And if they then decided that after our engagement, there is a need to review our stance and to resolve and settle matters out of court, they would have done that. So why do you do that post facto? When the minister announced that I'm reversing VAT, you are now prepared to engage with the lawyers. And I'm not going to speak for government. And the minister can speak about it. Maybe in terms of law, it makes sense for them, I don't know. But as the ANC, we never asked anyone to withdraw from court. We went with this process because we believed in this process. And what did you say as the media? You said my man is compromised. He has compromised, he must close shop. As for Herman, he doesn't know politics and all of that. He must close shop. ANC is going to dupe him. Look, integrity is everything we are fighting for. Deficit of trust among political parties and among South Africans is important. It has waned away over time. And we said when we engaged with parties, they said, no, we believe in the process. And this is what we want. From the time of passing the budget framework, I never understood doublespeak on these political parties. Even Action SA was attacked because it was the decider. That day we were supposed to have lost the budget framework. But Action SA said, no, we can't hold the country at ransom. And the same as Rise Mzansi. We've got reservations about this budget, the same as IFP. They said, we are going ahead with this. And that's it. And today, I see Helen says that ANC Mbalula is meeting with small parties. Now, I mean, there's no small here. Everybody here got a seat over 100,000 to be in parliament. And they've got a right to be here or not to be here. But being here, we constitute a majority. We are a majority as we stand here, as these political parties. And then we can decide what we want to do. We could have decided, and we could have decided that we persuade these political parties agree with that. I'm not talking on their behalf. In our meetings and discussions we've had with them, we never had a discussion about why 0.5 must stay. We never. We said as the ANC, if we replace 0.5, we must find sources because for us as the ANC, social spending is important. Teachers must be employed. Health workers must be employed. And then it is important that the SRD, social security net, must be sustained. That's what we said as we engaged with them in those particular discussions. And, you know, we are the largest party in the government of national unity. And we can't play dice with the lives of South Africans and lie to them about things that are unrealistic, that won't happen. And in this particular instance, we understand the responsibility to govern this country more than the DA or anyone else. We've got the responsibility to lead this country, not to collapse, not to be reduced to rubble with our largest 40%. We want South Africa to succeed. We want growth. We want our people to get employment. And we are not going to play marbles with people's lives around the issue of the budget. That's why I'm talking uncharted waters, the need to engage and to talk to everybody. And that's what we've done. And we use the word not guardedly, but for what it means, national interest. Okay? National interest. And other people said, no, this thing of reversing VAT at this moment is going to hurt you as the ANC, because others will take victory to themselves. But the ANC is bigger than a show by a fly-by-night, you know, victory. We're looking at the future, and we're looking at this budget, gathering experience, and what we need to do going forward. We've never been here governing a country as a coalition. And it is important that we need to engage and engage with everybody. Even as the ANC, when VAT 2% came, it was a shock in our system. And that is why even at the 11th minute, this was postponed. The deputy president was mandated to engage. He did. There was shifting of goalposts together with the minister at the level of the executive. We kept being briefed about this. We thought there would be a solution. There was agreement, there were conditions and all of that and so on. But it came to the point where in which, when we got to the finance committee, there were a point of difference, and political parties chose South Africa more than just narrow political interest. We are here today. Why shouldn't they celebrate? Because that is the victory that belonged to them in terms of engaging with us and agreeing with us that can we get VAT out of the way and get the budget going? Because there's a lot that is good in this budget. There's a lot that is good in this budget that serves the people of South Africa. So long after people have celebrated peacetime, we will still be here. And it doesn't mean that we've got to agree. We've got, we don't even have a supply and confidence with Action SA or BOSA and Rise Mzansi. But at the end of the day, we cooperate with them in the context of the GNU, whereas they are opposition parties in government. And then we are in government, and we are in the government of national unity, and we also work with everybody in that particular context. And then the issue of the DA, no, there's nothing sinister about that. We're supposed to meet with the DA today. We couldn't meet because we had this press conference. And I wrote to Helen at night, and I told her that it's impossible. Because she had a day in court, Nama didn't disturb her. She was in court from 6 a.m. I don't know when did they finish. Namdi busy. Nabantu bam. The ANC is busy. I can't abandon these South Africans who have said, ANC, we want to work with you. And then we want to deal with this particular issue. All of a sudden, I must get here in the morning. I'm not available. I'm busy with Helen. Abantu bazathi bandibuze yintoni mhlekazi nawe no Helen anigqibi and so on. So we said that, Julie, with respect, let's have a meeting on Friday. And then we didn't have it today. We'll have it on Friday between the ANC and the DA. And that's what is going to happen. So there's nothing that is, what we're going to meet about was not about this. We had to go to Cisco and finish our business. that we're doing in terms of the budget. And now we have reached a point where in which, in terms of the budget, we agree on VAT, and it has now been pronounced. There's a second stage of now implementing in Parliament the stage of resetting the budget. And I want to deal with that particular point, and other colleagues can deal with that. In terms of scrapping of the budget and the process, our understanding is that the VAT issue was submitted as part of the Money Matters Amendment Bill by the Minister to Parliament. That is the first thing that we understand. Secondly, Minister has to submit another bill to the Speaker, withdrawing the initial bill and replacing it with a new, which means as we speak right now, Treasury and Legislature must have activated the processes. It's automatic. Whether it's over 3 days, 4 days, that must happen. So, done. And then it means because they've celebrated and they've claimed victory, it means they agree with the process. Now, there is a second stage which we must now begin to look at in terms of the statement. Is the statement, but we still have to discuss the content of the second phase in terms of if you cut, what do you cut? And then if you get extra revenue from SARS collection, we are very happy about that. We are afloat. Social spending will continue, nothing will be affected. As the ANC, we are happy with that. It's there in the statement of the minister. And then you've got to read that statement to understand it properly, and so on. Of course, we're worried about 0.5%. If there's no alternative, it means everything else must slow down in terms of transformation. You are correct that the ANC would have done things a bit different because we got for the interest of the people we represent, but the program we're carrying in government, particularly in addressing what we call redress, and that is what is important. And lastly, we understand that the Speaker will then send it to the Standing Committee on Finance. And that is the process that is going to unfold. When did the minister inform us? 7 a.m. or when did the letter come out? We engaged and he responded through the statement. When did you get the statement? 7 a.m. Yeah, so Khutato said kungalala, so it means he had it before. So not we didn't sleep midnight. We got it then that this has been. But over and above that statement, with the submissions that were made, it was very clear that we have reached a consensus. And we had to come together and then agree that this has been agreed. And that is why we agreed to meet at 9 a.m. and to have a press conference. So we knew that our demand and the consensus that we've been talking about has been agreed to. And that is why we did not rush ahead of the minister, because we will be putting the cart before the horse. So minister was not forced, he was engaged. So I've seen a lot of reports that there was enforcement. The key question to us was that there is source of revenue to close the shortfall, and there was. And once that has kicked in, then we're prepared to move ahead. But also, you must also remember that there was a 30-day period that was agreed to. Now, it was not based on court. Now, others went to court because they wanted victory on their side, and that is why they went to court to challenge the processes. But we then had a political process of engagement, and then it arrived at a conclusion. And when we met with political parties, we said, as the ANC, we are ready for the minister to reverse this. We explained to political parties, the ANC doesn't run Treasury. Treasury is an independent body. an institution, and it must be protected and be supported for what it is. We don't want to run treasury. We know of people who wanted to run treasury, where they ended. They couldn't finish a weekend in government. So they became weekend special. So we don't want to run treasury. And you will understand what I'm talking about. It's not a joke. Because one weekend treasury was being messed up. This country was reduced to rubble. And then we had to embark on a particular process to campaign. We don't want to run treasury. We have never run treasury. We have submitted to the minister. He responded to us, and that is what is important. Very good if he also engaged with the DA, which he did, and then with all other political parties. Political parties did not have an answer to the budget constraint we are facing. They were on another level. DA had a bucket of things that we can discuss and negotiate, even post-budget, and agree on. And some of them are on the agenda of government. What are those issues? Concessions. What are those issues? Budget spending review. Are we interested in that? We are discussing that. President announced that in the State of the Nation address. Operation Vulindlela, dissolution. I headed rail policy and delivered on record time. It addresses the question of what must happen in terms of dissolution when it comes to rail in this country. There is policy. We can refer you to that. And then those are the things they wanted. We said these have got nothing to do with the budget. The people who raised issues that matter in terms of the budget is the political parties we're engaging with who said that budget increase is a problem to us. But we said, but okay, Minister, go and your team look at mitigating. That's why budget was postponed. Now, that's what happened. And that is the process we're about, and that is it. Now, in the era of votes, and you've got to project yourself as a Tarzan in this government of national unity, that you are not here for free, you can win something. And so Bella Act cannot be passed, NHI cannot be passed. It's what the leader and the president of Rise Mzansi is talking about, and he uses the word extortion, that we're stopping this extortion. Look, when you tell people that I will deliver water, but you know you don't have capacity, you are misleading people. They will kill you tomorrow because you are lying to them to get votes. Now, if you say to people, vote for me, I'm going to the government of national unity, and then I'll stop the ANC from passing Bella. But before, you knew that Bella was passed by the 6th administration, and it is in the desk of the president. You knew that. You knew that the NHI was passed, it has gone all stages, and then it's in the desk of the president, and it is signed off. And if the only way you can stop it is if you go to court and win. Now, if you tell people that you will stop it and you will change it, you are hoodwinking people and basically taking them for a ride. You are misleading them. It's not possible. When we talked with the DA and engaged with them, we didn't say in our talks going to the government of national unity that it include all the bills that have been passed by the 6th administration must be reversed. That was not there even in the statement of intent. We will have to negotiate everything else now in the government of national unity that has got to happen. If we want a new bill, there is a process. If we want to pass a budget, like now, there is a process we've got to undertake. And chartered waters means that that thing of passing budget and treasury presenting it to parliament without talking about it, it's over. We need to talk about the budget, its implications, even with parties who are outside the GNU and those who are within, and talk about the budget. And this is what we said we need to do going forward. Why vet in the first place? I've answered that question. And then my last point, News 24, Minister of Finance, there's no need to reshuffle the minister. He has done the job that is expected of him to do. He has consulted political parties. Those who chose not to engage him did not engage him. We engaged with political parties. Others told us that they didn't tell us about the budget. They talked politics and slogans. Others said to us, get rid of so and so, and then we will talk. That's not budget. That's not budget. When you get to parliament, you want to pass the budget, and somebody is holding a gun and say, get rid of Mahlengi, I'm in. So if I get rid of Mahlengi, this budget, you will support it even in its state. You need to then come to us and talk about the content of the budget. So we realized there that there's no talks there. There's nothing to talk about. If you say to us that get rid of people and before. We engaged here with political parties that are here before you. They didn't say to us, I can see Vuyomboko is getting there to say that they want to get in. It's Kenny who talked about it. And he was saying it in jest. The question of the GNU reconfiguration. We have always said that reconfiguration depends on conduct and then also depend. If you say that I'm not supporting this thing and I'm in government, it means you're defining yourself outside. The fact that you are still here, we are shocked. So the fact of the matter that you are still here, we are shocked because you can't support something that you have not been party to. And that has been the issue before us, and we put it across. So if you say to us, politically, I won't engage with you on the budget up until these people get out, and then we ask a strategic question. What in the budget you think represent neoliberalism or anything of that sort? That discussion does not arise because people say these are the terms. But when we talk to Action SA, they say, and no uncertain terms, we don't want VAT increase. We don't want that. We're unapologetic about it. We say we don't want it, but let's understand each other. We did not defend. And then we agreed that it must go away. It is gone. We are happy. It opens a new chapter in terms of how we look at the budget and what needs to happen in a very short space of time, in less than 5 days and all of that, whatever that needs to happen. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done, and Parliament is grinding as we speak. Where is the money going to come from is addressed in the statement. Very clear, unambiguous. In the statement of the minister, SARS revenue collection will address the shortfall, but equally, budget will be reviewed in the long term to ensure that we stay close in terms of the issues that we want to address. Daily Maverick, what will be cut? We have not even arrived at that. What will be cut? And all of that, if it has to be cut, it means it's the second process that we are going to be embarking upon going forward. So in conclusion, I'm saying that on behalf of the African National Congress, we support the minister's statement with these political parties. And I want to thank everyone who have trusted our engagement when we invited and they responded. There was no big brother approach in terms of this. And those who disagreed left. And they did not even leave, but they did not even come. Those who disagreed with us, they wrote us a love letter and said, thank you, we're not coming. And then there are just two political parties, three. We didn't engage. I don't know why the other one we didn't, but I won't mention them by names. We are not here for that. But I want to thank all political parties for engaging with us. This is not the end. We're still going to engage going forward. It was a difficult process, but it has given us the result. And the result is very clear that VAT is scrapped, increase. And then it will stay at 15%, and that is what has actually happened. And so we are very much happy about that. And we're looking forward to taking discussions forward in terms of the political parties when it comes to the budget issue. Thank you very much.
Thanks, SG. I'm really trying for us to wind up, and in the interest of time, but I'll ask the two colleagues to attend to those questions from, yeah.
Thank you so much to the SG for comprehensively dealing. Perhaps I want to note the Chief Whip of Parliament is also in the room, and I want to acknowledge the fact that part of the work that has to be done encompasses the legislative part be something that we are going to consult and work with the Chief Whip, the Speaker, and the respective committees. You raised the question about, as the SG has already responded, the bill that has been tabled as per statement is the Rates and Monetary Amounts and the Amendment of Revenue Laws Bill, which has been tabled. That means then Parliament will consider that retains VAT at 15%. What then equally has happened is the withdrawal in the same statement of the Division of Revenue Bill and the Appropriation Bill. Those bills are processed through the Money Bills and Related Matters Act, which then means they will then, firstly, a revised fiscal framework has to be tabled to the Finance Portfolio Committee. That then will come to the Appropriations Committee. We will then take the respective bills, the Division of Revenue and the Appropriations Bill, so that they are consistent with the fiscal framework. The reason why that process is stipulated in that manner is because if you want to make amendments to the Division of Revenue Bill and the Appropriations Bill, they form within the Appropriations Committee, and there's a prescription as to how you do that. So that prescription will then have to be followed. The 3-day issue then falls away in that sense because the bills have been withdrawn, the other two. The last thing that I think is important to note is that it is not a unique time in passing of the budget. If you went to another cycle, last year was an election year. The elections took place, if I can recall, in May, which meant that the budgeting process only began then to be passed by July, which the legislation allows that within the 4 months, budget has to then be passed. So we have to work with that time and work with the Chief Whip to ensure that that process is fulfilled. As to the mechanisms of passing a bill would typically take, public consultations, et cetera, et cetera. So that work has to be done. I think it would be helpful also to recognize the powers of the minister, but to also recognize, lastly, this issue about alternative revenue as it ameliorates the loss of the 0.5% VAT hike. We had extensive discussions. For example, the one bill which I know there's concurrence in working with the ANC and working with the Department of Trade and Industry is about how you levy a 6% sin tax on online gambling, as an example. If you were to levy that and pass the appropriate legislation by the medium-term budget policy statement, it means that in the medium-term framework in its broader space, you will be able to replace that income along with efforts done by SARS, along with efforts done by the NPA, and these were discussions that were taking place about how we recoup revenue and then use the Division of Revenue Bill to be able to ensure that the expenditure cuts are done consistent with the law. In fact, the Committee of Appropriations that met during the week of this week, and part of the work that we were looking at was some of those expenditure questions as consistent with the previous bill. And now that process has to be held in abeyance because now a new Division of Revenue Bill has to come in, an appropriations bill. So that work will continue because it's part of the work of Parliament and about ensuring that ultimately we get a growth trajectory and then we'll fulfill the legislative aspects.
Thank you, Railewoha. You covered. All right. I know that members of the media have been here for a while. We are rounding off, and I'd like to thank yourselves for your time and for continuing to communicate matters that are pertinent to our democracy. But I'd like to, on behalf of the ANC in particular, to acknowledge our colleagues, all the parties that are represented here today, and the members who support them, both the work we're doing in Parliament and the work that we've been doing from among political parties. We would have loved to have a more engagement about what has brought this agreement that we consider as the ANC to be in the best interest of the nation. There will be moments where we ventilate some of these and demystify and debunk a number of myths about what has characterized this process. But we are available to take one-on-ones. I myself working with a team of spokespersons. We will be able to coordinate this from here, and we will take it also to our respective parties. With that said, we are adjourned now. Thank you very much.